ostensibly we're here talking about kind of what we're doing at the moment. We both announced new tours. I announced a new. I'll show you the tour. I'll show you the posters, people. We both announced tours, and I think it's of interest purely because I quite like what I do for a living. I like it. I work all the time because that's me. And then I'll show you Frankie. Frankie, your tour is called The Last Days of Sodom.
Yep.
What was the last one called?
What was it called? I've no idea. I've actually wiped it from my mind.
It was called. I would happily punch every one of you in the face. It just strikes me as a kind of a wonderful thing, that sort of an ironic thing, that you don't like talking in public, and you don't like people.
Yeah.
And yet your job is talking to people in public.
Yeah. I hate people, and now people come up and talk to me. That's how bad it's got. Yeah. No. I started out writing jokes as a kind of line writer. I actually started for you. Working
on
for you on
Distraction.
Distraction.
So years ago, there was a guy called Ian Morris, who we both knew, who now writes The In-Betweeners, who was a mutual friend, and we were writing on Distraction. I don't know if anyone ever saw that, the kind of crazy quiz show. We used to smash things up, and we used to get stuff from Frankie and a guy called Jim Muir. We sort of had you there for vibes. You were very much the Bez of the 8 out of 10 Cats writing room.
I'm happy to be that.
Yeah.
And so I kind of drifted into the kind of telly side of it by accident, and the whole kind of live performing, because I would have happily just stayed a writer, a line writer. That's the side of it I love.
It's an odd thing that I suppose that's what we sort of have in common slightly. I mean, you don't like performing. I absolutely love it. It's kind of my whole life is performing. But the idea of being kind of a 50s style, like, joke writer, like, because we write jokes, and that's not that common these days. Mostly it's the artifice of coming up with observational comedy, and ours is it's just wordplay and just messing around.
Yeah, but it's an amazing job to have, that you're just spending your time trying to think of surprising ways for sentences to end, and you sit in a room and people bring you donuts, and then you get to go and say it live. But the actual saying it live part of it, I just find really distressing, almost.
We've talked about this before, like the idea that you would end up writing a show, if you could, you would write a show good enough that they're almost like magic words. It's almost like a spell that you could just say those words with almost no performance, and it would be like, it would work. You say those words and somehow people have a reaction and they laugh, and it's a weird sort of thing where you don't... Because you see some comedians... I'm quite in awe of comedians with very poor material that do... No, because the amount of performance... Sometimes you see someone and you go, this guy's got nothing. Jesus, he's working his arse off.
Those are the best comedians. He's got to do that every night. He's got to go and say that in Newcastle on a Friday. Imagine the energy he's going to have to put behind this piece of shit.
Yeah, mentioning no names, but there are some extraordinary talents out there. So, you seem much happier now post, because that world. And I like to think I was responsible for your misery, but getting into kind of Mock the Week and becoming a performer and doing the stand-up tours and the 2 DVDs that you've done and that sort of thing, you've kind of come out the other side of that now. You're kind of doing. It seems you're doing less on TV now. You seem much happier in yourself.
Much happier. I really found like the kind of the workload. I mean, no one likes to hear about how much people work or anything, right? But it was just really depressing, like how much effort went into that. And now I'm kind of doing some other things that I enjoy. I'm writing a comic strip. I'm hopefully writing some more comics and stuff like that, and it's harder for me. I mean, it's much more challenging in a way than just writing lines, but I'm certainly enjoying it a lot more. Yeah.
But yet you're going out on the road again. You're going to do another tour.
Yeah, but I'm literally doing sort of half a tour, like till I just have enough money to retire. I'll literally just stop in Carlisle or something. There's like 33 dates on it at the moment, and it won't be a massive.
It's an interesting thing, though, the way that you talk about it. I know Frankie for 10 years now, whatever, since we did Distraction together. I've known you a long time, and you're a very kind of amiable, friendly man, and that persona on stage of really holding the audience in contempt. And yet you care so much about how good the show is. You care about every joke working and it being a good show. It's a sort of a perverse thing, because I've seen a lot of comedians that do shows just to cash in, and it's just a piss poor show. And yours is if you like brutal jokes about a broken world, you are in luck.
I just don't see the point of doing anything if you don't do it properly. So that whole idea of people doing things as a cash-in just seems to me to be absolutely... Why would you bother? Why don't you just go do something else? But but I've sort of got to the end of how far I can go with that kind of thing.
It's on. We were chatting about the other day about what you can do live as opposed to what you can do on TV. And obviously there are constraints on TV from producers and channel controllers, but also constraints about if you're on television, you're a guest in someone's home, ultimately. And there's certain things that you can get away with saying and certain things that you feel like that's too much. And so the DVDs over the years and the books certainly, when people are literally buying into your stuff, it feels to me like you could take it a lot further.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's also the other side of it is that because we've both done a lot of telly for the last sort of 5 years or something, that it uses up a lot of your cleaner stuff. So people watch your DVD, and obviously the stuff you're doing in the DVDs is often the stuff that didn't make it to TV, and often the reason it didn't make it is it's a lot harsher. So people watch your video and go, "Wow, this guy's absolutely nuts," you know. That's a kind of neglected.
It's that idea of like the more brutal stuff, because obviously the other stuff does go into like if I write a 2-hour show, I reckon I've got a 10-minute raw variety set in that 2-hour show. Of like a couple of clean bits where I go, I could not swear in that bit, and maybe that joke's okay. It's a little bit rapey, but not massively. It sort of feels like a friendly sort of thing. I mean, even the clips for like something like the in-store tonight, because obviously there'll be some younger people in. So the in-store, we had to get like cleaner clips of the show.
Right.
We'll show a clip and we'll rate it afterwards.
Let's a touching summation of what homosexual life is like. We're going dancing and having Bacardi breezes.
Well, if that was your joke, it would be about...
I know what it would be about,
yeah.
But you can't say it.
It would involve a sauna.
It's great, though. I often think, right, I've got a theory of British comedy, which is that it's all about the voice. So British comedy starts out as satirising the voice of the establishment, right? So it's like... you start out with, even the Goons, they have all these kind of posh people who saying ridiculous things, and it goes right down to sort of Chris Morris, you know, just saying ridiculous things as a newscaster and stuff like that. And I think you're sort of like the off-duty voice. You know, you're the sort of one of those, you're like if you heard an army officer in colonial times talking to his mates. Do you know what I mean? It's more like the kind of like, this is where it would be between friends.
There is a weird thing actually talking about class, and most British comedy is about class, and the fact that I sound quite sort of posh. I mean, I'm not particularly. I'm from Slough, but the idea I think I get a much easier time than you do in terms of offensive material, because when you do an offensive joke, it sounds more brutal.
Yeah.
Because you are Scottish.
Yeah.
And there's no getting away from that fact, Frankie. There's no dressing it up.
It's also like you're working class, so maybe you're an idiot and maybe you didn't mean it. You know, there's that. That's it. Yesterday I got on the train in Glasgow, right? And there's French people behind me and they're lost, right? And they're sort of talking in French and they're trying to ask directions, and a workie that's working up the side of the platform turns around and answers them in French. And I find it really stunning. I mean, even though I'm Scottish and I know some navvies will speak French, right? But it just seemed like, what? This guy's just turned around and, and told them.
It is kind of a weird thing from a comic's point of view of who's telling the joke is such an important thing for a lot of people. Like, when people get offended by stuff, they don't get offended by the joke. It's who's telling it. I've heard you talk about people wishing that you were a character.
Yeah.
It's just the most ridiculous thing of like going, yeah, but if you wore a funny hat...
Yeah, I'd feel better about this.
But ultimately, we are sort of characters on stage. It's not like the real... it's not how that's how I am in front of 2,000 people telling jokes, and that's
everything's character. You know, when you're nice to your girlfriend's parents, that's character. You know, there isn't an essential you that you go, oh, but that came from the essence of his spirit. You know, like jokes are just positions. There's also a thing, though, isn't there, if you can't really defend it, because at the point you're defending it, it's not a joke. So a joke's a thing that people laugh at in a room. You know, it's a contract between people, whereas when you're trying to defend it, it's just this unacceptable thing that somebody said.
It's just a weird thing. I often sort of liken it to, I sort of feel a bit envious of musicians sometimes, because a musician could be here, and this shop, the Apple store could be empty, and they could sing a song beautifully, and it would still work. With comics, there needs to be an audience. It's like you're the keyboard, and we're just doing that on a bit of table, unless there's an audience to kind of hit against. That feedback loop is essential. So that thing of like, I'm writing a new show at the moment, I'm writing the new tour, and before I tell an audience the idea, it's not a joke. It's kind of an idea for a joke, and it's the audience ultimately regulate comedy, because if they don't laugh at a joke, it isn't anything.
And the amount of times that the actual joke is something you ad-libbed because of the energy of the audience is what, 50% or something for me?
Yeah, probably. Most of the writing's done on stage, I think. Like you might have the nub of the idea before you go on stage, and then actually how brutal you get with it, and the reactions of the audiences. Those kind of warm-up gigs are really kind of interesting, I think, because you write in a different way. Is your show different this time round because it's not the offcuts of Mock the Week? Because the last 2 tours have been stuff that didn't make the cut.
Totally. It's a different show, but it's actually stayed quite grim. It's actually stayed quite brutal. So I'm going to try and lighten it up a bit as I kind of go along. But certainly at the minute it's ploughing along the bottom of the seabed. Yeah.
Well, the book. I mean, speaking of grim and dark, the book. I don't know if anyone's read Work, Consume, Die. The book it's Frankie's columns from the Sun, the last year. Load of the gags from that, which are really a really good level of quality. It's really funny. And then the central premise is that you have to keep to a certain level of fame, otherwise you are buggered. Well, in a literal sense.
Yeah, that's why you're a pro, Jimmy, and I'm here in a T-shirt.
It is. It's a really, because it's almost like kind of I mean, some of the it's kind of a work of literature, and then it kind of has a little break and says, right, I'll talk about the royal family for a couple of pages and do some one-liners on that, or the chapter about war, or the chapter about disability, and then there's kind of a through line talking about kind of an analogy of being in comedy being like being constantly abused, which I think is maybe your experience of it.
Yeah, well, I guess it's one way of is one way of looking at it. But it's also just good to kind of have a bit of variety in the type of jokes you can write, because I actually sort of got into comedy loving Spike Milligan and the Goon Show and things like that, and when I've largely been on panel shows and things like that, so it's been kind of hard to write those kind of jokes. So some kind of like dafter moments in it.
It's interesting. I mean, the other thing, I don't know how many people have read it, but the other, I mean, it's quite kind of Naked Lunch. The bits about it's quite trippy and quite kind of, it's an interesting kind of, it's an interesting piece of literature. Kind of, just it's a very different writing style, I think.
Yeah,
how did you write it?
I wrote it on acid.
And that isn't like a shorthand. It's like on acid, man. No, you wrote on acid.
I wrote some bits on acid. Yeah.
Right. That does come across.
Right, cool. Oh, I'm glad. There's that thing. I read a great thing by Stephen King where he said a thing he tries to do is to protect the first draft. And often you can make something a lot more polished and a lot more of a product, but you lose the kind of energy of the first draft. So I was really conscious writing that to try and keep the wee sort of acid flavour to it. And not make it too much of a product. I kind of find there's a bit of that in the culture now where everyone's trying to get things honed down and going, oh, here we go, this is an acceptable product for you. We've filed the edges off, and it's kind of like, it's kind of a bit boring, some stuff. No, because you actually,
products.
You always break it up. That's the thing that's always struck me. Are you breaking the stuff up in this one?
Yeah, like there's it's like 300 jokes, but they're presented in different ways to kind of keep the rhythm right. I think the difficult thing with DVDs is like on a live show, you get that immediate feedback of like being in front of a group of people, and you know when people are getting bored. There's just a sense that you can tell in the room. And on a DVD, trying to get the edit right so that you've got you do some stuff standing up, like 10 minutes of stuff off the bat, and then you do some stuff with images, and then I do a lot of audience stuff, getting people up on stage and messing around and kind of just trying to mix up the energy in the room, trying to make it more of a show to feel like it's got a bit of a narrative. And somehow you never quite know what you want as an audience, but you know when it's right and when it's kind of not.
Do you ever feel frustrated though because you can get to something that's an amazing joke and go, well, that's not getting what it should because I've just told 40 amazing jokes, and
that would never happen in my show, no.
It does happen.
The level of amazing jokes is high. It's a weird thing where getting the order of the jokes is it's an odd thing of like, I love that idea that, I don't know how many people have seen my sort of DVDs or live shows, but the idea that I could tell a joke after 2 hours that I could never tell off the bat. If I went out there and tried to tell that joke first, the audience would go, no, I don't like it. But there's a weird thing where you kind of, it's almost like making friends with an audience. It's almost like there's kind of a relationship builds up over the course of 2 hours, and there's kind of a trust thing where and it becomes like that intimacy that friends have, where you can tell a really brutal, horrible joke, and you know that your friend is just joking. It's kind of okay.
That's your opener. Put it at the top. If they don't like that, they can fuck off. That's how I think.
Yeah, how's that working out?
It's going okay. I'm retiring.
I can't believe that you'll retire.
Yeah.
I find it an odd thing that you don't like that because comedy is so about ego. About the subtext of all comedy shows you've ever seen is please like me. And yet you don't seem that fussed about whether people like you. It's a very odd thing. It's very much the id, not the ego, that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last show was supposed to actually be about the id. I don't know if anyone watched that video, but like I come on at the start and I shout, "I'll show you the life of the mind." You know, the John Goodman character from Barton Fink. And the idea was, what show would I do if there was no restrictions from the superego going, "Oh, don't say that." You know, which is rarely anyway, kind of thing. But I think
we definitely lost that guy.
We lost him on superego.
So what would you say? What's Frankie saying is the show would be. You look totally fucking lost, man. I'll just tell you. So what Frankie's saying is, what would the show be? What would the stand-up show be if you didn't care what anyone thought about you? And most comics are obsessed by approval. So there's something horrible missing from our lives. Tough childhood. Something horrible happened. So we desperately need to be liked by strangers in a shop.
I think
on a Monday.
You explaining that has made him understand it less. Are you Scottish, man, or you just
You've definitely got the look. Are you applying?
You look so ginger you could get skin cancer from a crescent moon.
I don't think he cares what we say. It's out of his mind on shortbread and heroin.
But it's okay to recognise that kind of like, so comedy's a kind of narcissistic thing, but you kind of got to move on from that as well and go, well, let's get away from being a narcissist. Let's forget about the ego, because probably the ego, as we've developed it, isn't for that. It's probably something that we should get rid of.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a really important thing in kind of why. I mean, it's a weird thing that the job that we do, not only are we, well remunerated and people come to gigs and it's a big thing doing stand-up now, and like the status seems totally at odds with what we do for a living. We just write jokes. Mm-hmm. They're just silly little things. And it makes the only reason to do shows is to release endorphins and to make people happy for 2 hours if they come and see us. And there's a weird thing where it gets written about in The Guardian. You just think, it's sort of a waste of ink. We're just trying to make people laugh.
Yeah, I never read reviews. Like they just seem like
you should read some of mine, man. They're excellent.
I always find that it's a bit like if it's some comedy critic did that didn't like it. It's a bit like someone saying to me, "My dog barked when you came on TV." That's kind of the level I kind of attribute to it. It's just sort of, who cares what some guy thought? Some guy I don't know.
Well, maybe we should open it up to questions. What do you think? Has anyone got any questions? Any thoughts?
Like who? Give us examples of people you couldn't care less about in comedy.
Pretty much all of them.
I mean, present company excluded, of course. My opinion means the world to Frankie.
Yeah. I know there's loads of comics I really love. I really love Doug Stanhope. I went to see him when he was in London last time. He was brilliant.
I tell you one I love, like American stand-ups, like that maybe people haven't heard of, because it's pointless us recommending people that you already know are good. But there's a guy in America called Anthony Jeselnik, who I just think is extraordinary. He's on the roast of Charlie Sheen. He just does a tiny bit on that. But if you get a chance, his Comedy Central special is exceptional. He's just a brilliant comic. And if you like the kind of stuff that Frankie and I do, it's the same ballpark.
And a slightly different type of comic, Maria Bamford, who's an American comedian and just like the best comedian in the world, I think. She's
extraordinary, yeah. And she does a lot of voices and a lot of messing around. But I mean, if you take anything away from today, download some Maria Bamford and some Jeselnik. I mean, she's extraordinary talents. Louis C.K. I rate as one of the best in the world as well. I mean, I think a lot of people are already at that party, but if you haven't seen him, he's amazing.
And Bill Burr, if you've not seen Bill Burr, he does actually a free podcast every week as well. It's just absolutely bonkers. It's great.
He's like an angry ginger guy. How come you like him?
Yeah. He is actually. He is a brilliant comic.
Yeah. Any other? I mean, you can ask us anything. Oh, Spider-Man, you got a question.
Have either of you ever regretted telling a joke at all?
I don't think. I mean,
I have actually regretted a few things, but they're not sort of the ones you would imagine kind of thing. There's always like you can never be like perfect on thinking about it right, but certainly I did a TV show in I try. I did a TV show in Scotland, right, and at the time there was an advert that was a health advert in Scotland saying speak to your kids more, right? And I did a routine about what kind of stupid advice they're giving us now, right? And I really regretted it when I thought about it, because I thought that's exactly the advice that people need. It's exactly bad parenting's one of the big problems in Scotland. And probably some guy steered that through a bunch of meetings and went, no, that's what we need to do. And then I'm just turning up going, You know, I really did regret that, and there's a feel like that, you know, when you think
I don't know.
about
Well, I think that's kind of okay though, because even if you make a joke of it, it makes just more awareness of it. I wouldn't, you know. I think it's just that thing if it's out there in the ether to talk about these things. I mean, in terms of regret, I don't think so, because it's a weird thing where you can pick the joke. I could pick a joke that I've got into trouble with in the press and say, well, I wish I hadn't told that. But that could have been. There's probably maybe 10 or 20 jokes on the DVD on the new one that could be front pages of the Daily Express. If they chose to go after me, if they said, look, you know, this guy, it's his turn, let's get him. There's loads of jokes they could pick. And they, you know, they didn't pick unreasonable ones. The ones that they picked are a fair summation of the kind of work I do. And I think you've got to stand behind it and go, well, that's the sort of thing I say. If you don't like it, I'm fine with that.
I was looking at it and thinking they could have literally picked any joke. You just they're all like that, you know, and they sort of go, oh, that particular thing, naughty man. Get the DVD, you've got a year's worth of stories ahead of you.
Yeah, I did a thing. It's weird the ones that don't get picked on. Sometimes you tell a joke and you think, oh, I might get into trouble for this, but I just sort of, I'll say it anyway, I don't care. And then there's nothing. I did one about Jimmy Savile the other day. Like, literally, he'd been dead 2 hours. And I said, Jimmy Savile, the presenter of Jim Will Fix It, has died. I guess he finally got round to reading my letter. Nothing. They couldn't care less. It's just weird sometimes how... it's never the ones you expect. Should we have another question? Sure. From over there.
Jimmy, you obviously really enjoy the live performance side of it, and for the last few years you've been touring pretty relentlessly. Is that something you plan to do for the next 20 or 30 years, or do you have other things you're going to work on otherwise?
I think so. I think so. I really like the comics that I really kind of aspire. I mean, George Carlin we just mentioned, but George Carlin, someone like that, or Billy Connolly, someone that's, for me, sort of being a comedian, that kind of journeyman thing of going, well, this is my job, and I'll keep on doing this and coming up with shows. As long as I can do it, I'll do it. I mean, it's the polar opposite of Frankie. I mean, I think... I don't know what the motivation is there. I think there's just a weird personality disorder that I've exploited. I would like to just keep on doing it. So I'd like to keep on doing it. And I've kind of found a core audience now. I think I maybe offend less people now because there's a core audience that I'll go and see a show, like they come and see it once every 12 months and they buy the DVD every year. And it's, once you've got that kind of core, you can kind of relax a little bit. People kind of come back and you're preaching to the choir, so to speak. People get that it's a joke and they get you just messing. And it's a nice thing.
But don't you get knackered? Because I just find I get halfway through those tours and I'm just absolutely a physical wreck and slightly nuts. Don't you just, does it ever get to you?
Not so much. I mean, I don't know. I don't have kids though, so I think that's a big...
Yeah. So
I kind of live to work rather than work to live. I've got nothing else going on. This is it, yeah. Just got some jokes. Please like me. It's tragic when you say it like that, though, isn't it? This is like being interviewed or doing this kind of thing. It's like such sort of, it's just cheap therapy for us. Well, so was your question basically, when will you stop? Please, for the love of God, stop touring. Enough already. I put dates in for Christmas 2013 the other week. I basically put them in the future. Any other questions we could...
When you tour the country, do you have to change your routines as opposed to what part of the country you're in? Like, would you do something different in Wales as you would sort of in Scotland?
Not in the least. I've never found that you change it anywhere.
People have different areas of what they will and won't accept, but I do a very similar show and I write some jokes about the town usually.
I find it's nights of the week, nothing to do with where you are in the country. Right. I find just certainly, kind of Friday night, people tend to be super boisterous because they've gone out after work, maybe at 6 o'clock because they're seeing a show, they've met up with some friends, they've had a few drinks, and by the time the show comes on, by the time I'm on stage at 8, they're pretty tanked up and kind of ready for fun. Saturday nights, they're a bit calmer. Saturday nights are probably the best. Sunday nights are great. Tuesday nights, they've clearly booked it going, I'll go and see him on the 29th. Great, we'll get tickets, fabulous. And then they arrive and go, it's a Tuesday, and think, well, I want to be watching CSI. What am I doing now? Just kind of a bit I'm not sure how to react. They take a bit more warming up. But I think it's surprisingly uniform. The thing I find really weird is, like, an audience this size, it's probably, 100 people here. It's not that many people. But, as a focus group, audiences have got this there's a weird crowd intelligence where if a joke works, even in a 50-seater little warm-up room where we do tryouts for tours, if it works with 50 people, it'll work with 2,500 people. And there's a weird... I find it very odd how the British public have got kind of an identity that intelligence of, when I said when audiences regulate comedy, you decide what is and what isn't acceptable, and it's pretty universal, the reaction.
Yeah, it's strangely so.
Yeah.
I often warm up in just 50-seaters.
but they'll have the same big laughs, laughing around of applause. Everything will be the same sort of rhythm as it would be in a huge room. Yeah. Oh, you've got a question. Oh, lady. Hello, lady.
Like, coming off the back of that question, do you have a favourite place in the country to play?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. It's probably somewhere like. I mean, I really like Liverpool because there's always a slight sense of edge because it's got a real reputation as a tough place to play. And if they love you, they really love you. And if they hate you, they can be quite harsh. I mean, I did a DVD in Glasgow because people are just mental. Like they're really kind of aggressive audiences and they heckle a lot. And I like a lot of audience interaction in the DVD, so you can guarantee you'll get heckled a lot. But I mean, they're all good. I find the shitter the town, the better the response. There's a weird thing where, not in that sense of like even shitty, like Inverness is a beautiful town, you know, on Loch Ness it's gorgeous. If you go there as a comedian, there's a sense of, oh, he's come here. We don't have to travel 4 hours to see him at the SECC. There's like, people are glad, or you go and play Clacton, you know, somewhere just, or, you know, big up Clacton, yeah, nice. But it's a weird thing where if you go to a small place, like I do quite a lot of kind of even sub 1,000, like sort of 900-seater gigs, so small regional theatres. Like if you go to Dudley, so I play a lot, I've recorded this DVD in Birmingham, but I played Dudley, which is only 7 miles away. But I played to sort of 1,000 people there in the town hall. And they're so pleased you came, because a lot of them are young people that don't drive or people that, you know, it's just easier to get to. And I think they kind of appreciate that. There's a weird sense where people want to go out, but some people haven't got the wherewithal to travel as well. So, any other? Oh, yeah, oh, there you go. Yeah, then why not? The mic's right next to you.
Do you have a definitive moment in comedy where you sort of thought, I am funny, and then it come off the back of that, if you know what I mean?
I'm super looking forward to it. It's going to be where I kind of went, oh, I've made it kind of thing. Not really. I think if you look, like, I've done 7 DVDs now, and if you look at the first one, I look like I have a stick up my arse. I mean, I'm so uptight and nervous, and, you know, performance-wise, you feel like you get better every year, or I certainly feel like my performance changes a little bit, and I'm a bit looser than I was, and a bit more myself, and my stage persona or kind of character is getting closer to who I actually am. And that's kind of an onward going, you know, thing. And hopefully you just get better all the time. But I don't think I wouldn't have thought that I'm there yet in terms of, you know, when you look at someone like, you know, as effortless as George Carlin, you kind of slightly go, well, what's the point of me?
I started out being very uptight, and then I did a show at Edinburgh called The Voice of Black America. And I bought a pink suit, and I just tried to do it like a black American guy would, just do the whole show like that. And
well, we were both very into like Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock as like stand-ups that just are on stage and have got just a certain way about them. I mean, especially Dave Chappelle, I just think he's got just incredible stage presence and charisma, and just having fun with it. I mean, having fun with it is really the thing. Kind of sometimes it becomes a job. Sometimes I find myself like on 8 out of 10 Cats or something going, right, got to write these jokes about this subject this week, and you're very, you know, forced into thing, and reminding yourself to be grateful that it's such a fun thing to do, just to kind of have, and having a laugh, because essentially your job is to have fun.
Yeah, and to not take it too seriously, because it's such a stupid thing to do. It's like, oh yeah, this is ridiculous. It
is ridiculous, but the status it's afforded as well. And I think that's partly to do with the nature of fame in our society. I don't know how you feel about the thing. I don't know if anyone read the Jonathan Franzen thing about the ache. Did you read that short piece he wrote? No. About how, you know, fame has sort of replaced religion in our society. That idea that people think, if I'm, like in the way that heaven used to be a thing, people used to want to go to heaven. Now people want to be famous. It's kind of replaced it as a thing where people think, well, I'll be all right if that happens. Yeah. It's a weird kind of thing where you get a lot of status just through being a man that says rude things on TV. It's weird. You really feel like you haven't earned it as well. I think that's part of the reason I tour so much. But you do it because that gives you a sense of worth of like, oh, well, I am working. I'm doing something. Even though it's a stupid thing, I'm doing a lot of it.
You've just made that sound terrible.
Any other questions? Anything else you'd like to know? You got your hand up. I will give you a microphone. Give him a microphone. He has curly hair.
Are there any like particular topics or areas you think are taboo, which you wouldn't?
It's
very do?
Yeah. I think they're definitely. I mean, I don't know about you, but definitely for me, it's very difficult to make airplane food funny. It just feels like someone else has got there before.
Flooring is a very difficult area, I've always found.
Flooring, well, you could, you know, I think there's a joke about Hispanics and underlay that you could maybe put together, but yeah. I'm with you on that, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, there are taboos, but the question is, do you want to respect them?
I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, man. How are you going to use it? See the man behind you.
Just like that.
Just
I
like.
want to congratulate the cameraman here, who is doing a wonderful job. You know.
I couldn't agree more.
Because he is.
Yeah, this is Well, I think fabulous.
That's one of the 3 weirdest things that's ever happened, I think. Anyone else whose work you're enjoying? Because we're feeling a bit miffed.
How badly is this going? That not only that guy was just looking at the cameraman, but that got the biggest laugh. This is going badly, isn't it?
I can't wait till you go home tonight and say to your wife, well, the cameraman was particularly good.
What, sorry? Pimp by your colleague. Pimp by your colleague. You're my new favourite human being. Please. Can I get him... you're from the Apple Store. Can I get him washed and brought to my room? I'm joking. Don't wash him.
Really hoping he doesn't have a gun.
Definitely one of yours.
Yeah.
Definitely
I don't think
one
he's
of
one of
yours.
anybody's. Take care of the rover.
Take care of the rover, yeah.
We will do. And good night.
I don't know if you've got a catchphrase, but take care of the rover. If you learn anything this evening, take care of the rover. Yeah, he needs something, doesn't he?
Anyone else enjoyed the work of the technical crew?
Go
on. How do you feel about hecklers? In particular, you say about like friendship with the crowd.
I used to get heckled a lot in the clubs. You know, especially when I would play like the Stand in Glasgow or something like. I'd play like rough towns, and you know, I'd be.
You really need to visit some other towns in the west of Scotland, Jimmy. You need to do
No, I don't. I don't know nothing. But like, I have to actively now say, right, we're going to have a little time out, and if you want to heckle something aggressive, we'll do some heckles, we'll have some heckle put-downs, it'll be a lot of fun. But literally, I have to say it now, because people kind of, once you've come out to a show, once you've paid £25 to come to a show, you don't want to mess up the evening for yourself or the people around you. You don't want to be that guy. You want to feel like you're in a safe place, but sometimes it's fun to shout your mama. Sometimes it's just fun to shout. And it's also, the thing in the room is, I like the idea that I haven't got the monopoly on being funny. Like, because it's a weird thing with comics, you're not on a pedestal. I mean, we literally are on a pedestal, as I say that. but people don't look up to us in the same way as they look up. If it was a musician up here or a film star, people are in awe of their talent and like, oh, wow, they're amazing. With comics, you sit there and go, yeah, he's funny, but I like that sort of, I've got the same sort of sense of humour as him, or we laugh like that with our mates. The most common conversation I have when I meet people after shows is going, I've got a mate who's really funny, he should do it as well. And I want those people to join in the show. And sometimes I'll rinse them a little bit, but not too much. You had a question as well. It seems to be coming in pairs.
How did both of your first gigs go?
Mine went really, really well, and then I later found out that crowd had lied to me, and my act was shit. It just went amazingly well. I thought, I'm great at this, and then just burned for the next few.
Yeah, I had a really good first gig, like really good 5 minutes above a pub. It's the thing that people don't really talk about in Great Britain. People talk about people playing the O2 and the Comedy Store and the theatres that we kind of play. But they don't. The stand-up circuit, like the like people like above pubs trying 5 minutes and stuff. We've got the best circuit in the world. It's so easy to get stage time here compared to anywhere else in the world. And those early gigs, people are so supportive. The kind of social thing. If anyone's thinking of doing stand-up, I would strongly recommend you give it a go. Because even if you just try it once and it's a disaster, you'll enjoy stand-up a lot more as a result. But mine was fine. Second one was dreadful. Okay,
no, it's my birthday tomorrow, and I'd really like you to say to me a happy birthday.
It's your birthday tomorrow? Well, I can't ask you your age because you're a lady. How much do you weigh? Go on.
7 stone. Yeah.
I can't believe you answered that. Well done.
Okay. What's your name?
Amanda.
Amanda?
Should we wish Amanda a happy birthday?
Of course we should, Jeff.
Please.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. This is weird. Happy birthday, dear Amanda. Who's 7 stone? Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Hooray!
Cheers.
That
You've
feels...
actually made my year. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.